Hi everyone, this is Todd from One Shot API. This is going to be a tutorial on how you can do fully non-custodial automated range trading using n8n and the MetaMask Delegation framework. So before we get started, because we're using MetaMask Delegations, let's make sure that our MetaMask account is set up. So if you come to MetaMask and click on your account and go to the account details, there's a little section here called Enable Smart Contract Account. We're going to be doing this tutorial on the Arbitrum network, so make sure Arbitrum is toggled on, and then your account will be ready to go. Also make sure in this account that you have a little bit of USDC and maybe also some wrapped ETH on Arbitrum, because those are going to be the assets that we're going to be range trading. So coming back over here, this is our workflow, and you can copy it by clicking on the link in the video. And there's this button here, use for free. Click this and copy the JSON for the workflow, and you're going to add it to your n8n account. So before we go through all of the setup, which there's a little bit of setup required since it's a pretty flexible workflow, I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's running. So this is the workflow here. Let's see it in action. It's basically a flip-flop gate. So it's going to sit here and monitor prices on a Uniswap v3 trading pool. And when it detects it's either below or above your range trading threshold, it's either going to perform a buy of wrapped ETH from USDC, which is this lower path, or it's going to sell out of wrapped ETH back into USDC from the upper path. There's this little configs box here where you can set your trading variables. So if we open that, let's just try to get it to execute once so we can see it. I've got this upper variable here. This is the amount of USDC that you buy into ETH with on each buy trigger. So I've got it set to 20 cents. So USDC has 6 decimals. I've got this set to 200,000, so that would be 20 cents. And this is my upper price, so if the current price of ETH and USDC is above 4,600, it's going to sell. And if the current price is below 4,500, it's going to buy into ETH. So let's check the price right now. At the moment, it's about $4,600. So let's trigger a buy so we can see it operating. So to make it trigger a buy, let's set this to $46.50, and let's set the upper price. Let's just bump it up and save. And then let's trigger this workflow. Okay, so the first thing is we hit this human in the loop confirmation node in Telegram, which we'll set up later. So this will ask you, do you want to proceed with the trade or cancel it? This will wait for 1 minute before the algorithm proceeds. So if you open this, you can cancel, or you can say go ahead and proceed with the purchase. And then you can see here it went downstream and performed via One Shot API the necessary approval on your USDC and the swap from USDC into ETH before continuing on and sending you a notification that the trade was performed. Here's our notification in Telegram. So it told us we swapped the 20 cents of USDC for this amount of ETH, and that was the price that we purchased it at. Let's also see what it looks like to sell. So if we just fiddle with these swap parameters again, let's just push these around. 4,600, no, 4,500. Save again. This will trigger the sell branch of our workflow. Click this. Again, this workflow will send you a confirmation message, which you can ignore and it will proceed, or you can cancel it or tell it to go ahead and trade. And again, through One Shot API using MetaMask Delegations, it performs the approve for us on wrapped ETH and then swaps the wrapped ETH back into USDC. And we receive a confirmation message in Telegram telling us we swapped that ETH that we bought on the previous entry back for USDC and the price that we executed this at was 46.19. So we got a little bit less than we put in originally, so we lost a little money on this trade, but the price differential there was very tiny, and we were having to pay for the Uniswap swap fees, so that ate into our profits a little bit. So, when you're doing this for real, you'll want to set reasonable price ranges here and take that into account when you're trying to figure out what your profitability might end up being. So that is the workflow in action. It's very simple conceptually. This thing is just going to sit here and trigger on a schedule. I like to run mine every 5 minutes, so basically using 5-minute candle windows. And this will come here and use the price oracle on the target trading pool to calculate the current price. So we're not going through some kind of proprietary price serving API like Coinbase or CoinGecko or something like that. We're actually reading the price and converting it directly from the chain. So there's very few intermediaries here other than One-Shot API, which serves as your delegation relayer. So with that explanation of the workflow here and seeing it in action, let's go ahead and set it up. The first thing you're going to want to do is come to oneshotapi.com and make a free account. And we're going to need an API key to connect One-Shot API to our workflow. So come to the API keys tab, hit create a new key, generate that, and you're going to need to grab your API key and secret. And then let's just go through the process of taking this from workflow page here and importing it into n8n. So if we copy that JSON, come back to n8n, create a new workflow, and paste this. Again, here's our workflow that we just investigated, and start by clicking on one of the One-Shot API nodes, and we're going to create a credential with those API key and secrets. So if you click this, take that API key and secret, paste it here, and then the last thing is the business ID. The business ID is up here in the top header of your One-Shot API portal. Copy that, paste it into the business ID field, and save it. And then all of your One-Shot API nodes will be able to communicate with your account. Now the next thing, I've got this sub workflow here for your convenience, which will set up a wallet and all of the necessary methods that you need to point your workflow at in order to get this up and going. You only need to run this once. So if I execute this, it's going to check if I have a One-Shot API server wallet for Arbitrum provisioned. And if I don't, it'll create one for me. And then it's going to import these smart contract methods that I need into my account so that I can call them. So if I click this, it'll sit there and import all those methods. And then if you come over to One-Shot API, if you come to wallets, you will see an Arbitrum wallet provision for you. So I already had one. Make sure that you put a little bit of ETH into that account. $5 worth of Arbitrum ETH will do hundreds of transactions on Arbitrum, so you don't need very much. Then if you come over to the Smart Contracts tab and filter on Arbitrum, you'll see here these are all the smart contracts and their methods that we're going to be using for setting up this workflow. So let's finish setting up that workflow. We don't need that subflow now anymore. If you want, you can delete it if it bothers you, or you can leave it there. So the first thing is all the instructions for setting this up are right here in this little note tab. You can follow these instructions exactly if you don't want to follow the video, but let's start from left to right. Click the fetch pool, and so we're going to import the observe function. So this is the one we want right here. Click observe. The get last trade type, that's just a list on our transaction history. We don't need to touch that. Next, we have the quote node for our buy and sell path. So the quote uses the quote exact input single. So click that. We need that function for both branches. Quote exact input single. Next, we have the approve step. So the bottom route needs to approve USDC. So I've got a bunch of tokens in here, but this one right here, approve Arbitrum USDC, I'm going to select that. And then on the upper route, I want to find the approve function for wrapped ETH. So that's this one right here, gives an amount of Arbitrum wrapped ETH allowance, that one. Next is the swap node. So both of these nodes will point at the same smart contract function, and that is exact input single. So this one right here, use that same function for both nodes. Exact input single. And then lastly, there's a read that looks up how much remaining USDC we have and then sends that to us in Telegram. So we're going to use balance of. So we want the balance of USDC on Arbitrum. So we want that method. Same thing, balance of Arbitrum USDC. Okay. So now One-Shot API is set up. This will interact with all of those smart contract methods that we imported. Now, the helpful thing about this workflow is it sends you notifications on Telegram, so you can stay up to date with what's happening without having to be sitting in front of n8n all day. So to set this up, click on one of your Telegram nodes, and we have to connect that Telegram node to a Telegram bot. So if you click this, the thing you need is an access token. So if we open Telegram and we search for BotFather, and there's tons of tutorials on YouTube that show you how to do this. If we come to BotFather and we do new bot, if we click that, follow the instructions for setting up a new bot, and then once you've done that, click on the bot, hit API token, and copy that API token and paste it here. And then that will authenticate all of these nodes against your personal Telegram bot. Now the next thing is we want to find the chat ID between us and our Telegram bot. And that's a little tricky to do. Telegram doesn't expose chat ID numbers to you in the Telegram app. So the trick that I found that I like is to insert a temporary node, a new trigger, which we will delete, but find Telegram as a trigger and then trigger on message and execute this, and then go to your bot and send it a hello. And then you'll see here it detected that message that we sent, and then here's your chat ID right there. Copy that ID. You can delete that temporary trigger, and then in your swap configs, right here, Telegram chat ID, paste that ID right here. Okay, so last step to set this up, we have to provide delegations to One-Shot API so that it can perform non-custodial trades for us. So first, this delegator variable, that is your wallet address that we upgraded to a Arbitrum Smart Wallet. So copy that address and paste it here. And then in One-Shot API, come to the Wallets tab, go back to your Arbitrum wallet, connect the wallet to this page, and then hit Add Delegation. Okay, so I like to set my delegations for like a week. You can set them to whatever you want, but I'll make a delegation that's valid for a week. And then we want to be able to make transactions against USDC, wrapped ETH, and the swap router. So hit Create Delegation, confirm, and you can see here there is my delegation that I created If I hover over that, there's my smart contract addresses that I delegated to. And at that point, we are ready to run this bot. Be sure that you check the current price of, in this case, the ETH to USDC. Kind of find some ranges that look reasonable for your strategy. So maybe we might set this between, I don't know, 4,400 and 4,600. That might be a good range. So I might set here 4,600 and 4,500, 4,400, 4,400. So that's a $200 spread. And then I might set this, instead of doing 20 cents, which isn't going to make us very money on a successful range trade, I might set that to, $20. So, well, that's $2,000. Let's set it to $20. So $20. And your trigger, set that to some kind of an interval that you think makes sense. I'll leave mine at 5 minutes. And then just to show you here, if I'm not in the interval that is specified by my trading range, or if I've already completed a sell and I'm still above that price, this workflow is smart enough to not perform repeated trades that it's already done. So let's just run this here. You can see that I've already done a sell, right? So it's not going to sell again. And then to activate this flow, save it, and then turn on from active or from inactive to active. And then this flow will sit there and run for you, and you will get notifications in real time on Telegram for each confirmation, which you can ignore, or notifications that a trade has completed. And then after each execution, if you want, you can come back into One-Shot API, click on transaction history, and you can look at all of your transaction history in One-Shot API and their memo fields that tells you whether it was a buy or a sell. If we click on that transaction hash, you can see in here trades are usually about 1 cent. So take that into account when you're predicting how much profit your strategy might make. And I want to show you in here in the logs, because we're using the MetaMask Delegations, you'll see on all these trades a redeem delegation event. So that tells you that this is running delegated transactions on your behalf. Then you can see at the top the transfers and the swap events coming from Uniswap. And so that concludes the demonstration of the range trading workflow and how to set it up. So give it a shot and let us know on X or Telegram how that's working for you, or if you need any help getting it started. Thanks, everyone.